Welcome back to Level Headed Gamer, guys. My name is Joseph. Today I want to do another grinding Godfall video. Today it's going to be predominantly about Ascended Tower of Trials. And I want to give you something I haven't seen being done before, is which Banes should you avoid and which Banes actually can give you better loot. And I want to address one more thing, the grinding structure of this game overall and kind of my critiques of it. Let's get right into it, guys, without any further ado. Now, let's start with Banes to avoid, because that's what's really going to stop your progress in this game. Now, these are the ones I kind of go from memory and a couple from forums. They're not exactly the way they're written in the Tower of Trials, but essentially that's what they are. The first one being enemies can spawn shielded. That sucks because even bosses can sometimes spawn and the shield goes on and off for about 5 to 10 seconds. So you're doing no damage while they're just obliterating you, which... trust me, especially with the shielded guys or some of the bigger enemies or even bosses, that's going to get real annoying real quick. The next one is enemy weak points can only be exposed through Rampage. Now, sure, you're probably going to have Rampage going on for most of the time, but for the moments that you're not going to, and weak points are going to be a way to kind of bring up your weapon technique or your Rampage or whatever the criticals, you're not going to be able to do it. It just puts you in a weird position. So if you can, it's not as bad, but I would say avoid this one as much as you can. Weapon technique drains automatically. Now that depends on your build if you have a really good weapon technique charge, but if you don't, again, this is going to just kind of demolish you right away. And I sometimes like having a second weapon with weapon technique saved up. In this case, it's all going to kind of drain out. Next one is Banner Aura drains health instead of healing. Again, if you're not a build that's very high on overhealth, that is going to affect you, because for example, for me, overhealth helps me quite a lot, and it only damages my later on trials when I get to the higher levels, like the 20s and 25s. Next Bane I would say to avoid is invisible weak points unless polarity attack is active. I think for a lot of people, I think it's general consensus, polarity attacks in general are not that good. So imagine you're most likely not even using them. I don't have one skill point in polarity, so that's already putting me in a very awkward situation where I would never be able to use weak points. Now, next one is going to be enemies have 50% critical resistance. And again, when you get to the higher levels, they have so much health. So with that, on top of that, you're going to be slicing away forever, and they'll just wipe you out with 1 or 2 moves. So that is definitely one to avoid. Now, this one is probably one of the most drastic ones you can have. The next two, actually, is the first one is minus life stones. So I never picked this one because that's ridiculous from the start. But I've seen on forums where people say it starts with just minus 1 life stone, but it progresses to where it becomes to a point where you either have no life stones or just 1. And imagine at the later stages fighting bosses, not a good place to be at. And the last one is enemies can become linked together, meaning you have to eliminate both of them in a short span of time. Then only then do they die. Imagine 2 really big enemies. One is trying to run away, one is running towards you, and then imagine you also have something like enemy spawn with shielded. It just becomes a whole mess. Those guys you want to avoid. Now I want to talk about Banes you can use. The first one, actually, this is going to give you better loot, and in my experience, every single time, is Elevator spawns mid-level bosses every single level. My god, this is one of the best things, because let's say you don't get very far in the Tower of Trials, you still get some good loot from every time you eliminate some of the bosses. I mean, they're not going to drop a legendary every single time, but the chances are good. And not to mention, they're not super hard if you have a decent build. The next one is uncommon rooms won't spawn anymore, and the trail timer is 30% faster. Now again, this is really good because you don't get any more uncommon rooms, you get more rare loot, but the time trial is going faster, so it means you have to have a pretty good build to clear it quicker so you could get the keys. The next one is invisible enemies. I mean, yeah, it kind of sucks if they're invisible, but it's on and off for 5-10 seconds, so they do appear. So it's not so bad, especially if you're doing hit point, weak point attack damage. You're not even going to notice that they're invisible. You're just going to be obliterating everything in your path. And the next two, they're not helpful, but they're not so bad. It's shorter dodge window and shorter parry window. Because the parry window, especially if you level it up, is pretty high in this game. And the dodge, again, is not so bad. You could get out of trouble. But at this stage in my build, I don't even dodge anymore. I just literally go for weak points non-stop. So that covers Banes. that you should avoid and banes you should use. Now I want to talk about some boons that I think are a secret weapon, one specifically. Of course, you should get your Archon Fury duration up and your Archon Fury charging speed and damage up, weapon technique charge and damage, you know, basically fine-tuned to whatever build that you have, right? I would always put weapon technique charge and damage over Archon Fury because there are stages when they take away Archon Fury and they never take away your weapon technique, so that's something to consider. And this particular boon I have avoided for a while, but once I started using it, holy man, it makes a difference, especially with smaller enemies trying to surround you, is hitting a weak point blinds an enemy. That always stuns them. It just keeps them in a perpetual state where they're stunned all the time, and you can just keep obliterating them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Doesn't work for bosses. I think it works for mid-level bosses. It doesn't work for bosses, but do consider this one. If there's nothing, unless it's like a really, really good boon, I really recommend using this one right here. Now that covers the banes and boons that I wanted to address, but I want to address even another thing, is the issue with Godfall overall. I don't enjoy the grinding of this game. I do like the game, and that's the reason I keep coming back to it, but I don't enjoy the grinding because too much is left to chance. You're doing 2 or 3 hour runs on the Tower of Trials, and if you beat it, it's not a good chance you're gonna get, first of all, the items that you want, and if you do get the items that you want, are you getting it in Primal? And if you're not getting it in Primal, are you getting the roll that's half decent even? Okay, you got a half decent roll, you upgraded, and then it gives you something you completely didn't want. There's too much left to chance, and there's no way to re-roll and retry it, so it's really, really annoying, and it doesn't respect your time. Respect how much time you put in to get something useful. And it glitches in the tower. Today, for example, I've had glitched where I glitched up, I think, in tower level 23, and I couldn't do anything about it. I had to pull back, and I was ready to pull my hair out, but I don't have any hair, I'm bald. So, see, it's really, really annoying. But the other one is Primal Gear. It's pretty rare to find. Even going through 20 floors, I will sometimes only find one, maybe, going for a whole run in a tower, and that's not good. You shouldn't be playing for 3 hours and you don't get anything out of it, and then when you do get one, most of the time it's a garbage roll. So again, it just kind of reinforces this. It's huge commitment in the towers, and you get crap rolls. It becomes a waste of time. Dreamstones don't give you primals, and even in Dreamstones, it's not guaranteed. You try to fine-tune whatever item you want. Okay, I'm gonna get epic legendary charms mixed in with weak points, so my likelihood of getting a charm with a weak point, oh, it's going to be great. Still, most of the time, you get a lot of crap that has nothing to do with it, and it's just really, really frustrating. I enjoy the system in Division 2, where different parts of the map basically give you a chance to go there and farm specific loot that you're looking for. You want charms? You can farm charms. You want to get rings? You can farm rings. It's not so left in the dark for you and just going endlessly grinding in and out. I think there has to be a better system of getting items, or at the very least it should be giving you a lot more of them so you have more to play with, or at the very least to re-roll. But that's just my opinion, and I'm starting to realize also there's not a lot of gear in this game. I've been playing it since the beginning. I'm starting to realize Primal Gear is basically the same shit you get from before. It's just a little slightly souped up version. They're not even that much better. They don't have that many unique properties. So I think the game really needs to be reworked in terms of grinding. I still say the game is pretty fun. It's not amazing. It's not mind-blowing. I did expect more from Gearbox Software, to be honest, because they are the guys who originated, I would say, the looter-shooter, looter-slasher kind of genre. Obviously not counting dungeon crawlers and what they've started with Diablo, but again, my opinion here, guys. Hopefully this was useful to you, and you can get back to grinding, and hopefully you get through the tower yourself. Guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Peace out.